Hi everyone, I am back. I am super excited. I have an amazing guest speaker that I wanted to talk to you guys. So I am super excited about that. It's all about yoga today. Probably part one. I have a feeling because we had this discussion and we have some questions we're gonna get answered by her, but there's just so much information. I have a feeling we're gonna have a part two. So let's start with part one. Okay, so the guest speaker I have today for you guys is Dr. Sandra. She is a Yoga Alliance continuing education provider. She teaches at both the online yoga school through the Yoga and Ayurveda Center and at the Hochstein School in Rochester, New York. In addition, she has her own business, SBS Yoga Works. And she completed her yoga teacher training through the Yoga and Ayurveda Center, same place that I did my yoga training from. And she also did restorative and chair yoga as well as Ayurveda studies. She has developed 2 and 3 hour themed yoga workshops and has over 60 yoga mythology 1 hour classes available on the online yoga school at virtual studio sites. And not only that, if you didn't think that was enough, here's more. She has also published a book, Taking Myths to the Mat, which is available on Amazon and as ebooks on Kindle. And we're still not done. She holds a Doctor of Music degree in voice performance, has been a faculty at Hochstein School for 20 plus years. So now you can probably understand why I'm so excited to have her on board. So let me get her. Hi, Dr. Sandra, how are you?
Hello, Dr. Fareen. It's so good to see you. I feel like we are sisters in yoga because we studied at the same school together.
Absolutely, right? That's how it ends up being. I love it. I absolutely love it. I loved, since I have my doctorate in physical therapy, when I actually took the classes through this program, I was so happy. The amount of education that was given, I was really happy. So I wanted to share
Yes,
from,
yes.
the faculty and staff from that school because I really feel like if anybody else wants to get certification, that's the place to go. And I will put all of that information out for them to be able to get
Thank
all of
you.
that information in case somebody wants to go ahead and get their yoga certification also, right?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
So I'm super excited. I have a bunch of questions for you,
Sure.
and you probably heard me. I have a feeling this is part one of many interviews we're probably going to be doing because there's just so much wealth and knowledge when it comes down to yoga and the way we can use it. So here we go. My first question:
Yeah.
when someone asks you what is yoga, how do you usually answer them?
Well, first of all, most people, especially in Western thinking, tend to think of yoga as something very esoteric, something very woo. And actually, it is so basic that the simplicity of it is a little surprising. Yoga is simply a way of getting the body and the breath to work together so that you can calm your thoughts, slow down your heart rate, and get yourself ready to sit quietly for long periods of time so that you can meditate. And I don't mean pray, I mean just meditate, which simply means noticing how you're breathing, noticing how you're sitting, noticing the sounds around you. So, really, that thousands upon thousands of years ago is what brought yoga into being, the need to tone the body so that you can sit for long periods of time.
And it's amazing. I mean, I've always loved yoga for like since I've been a PT for like 20 plus years.
Yes.
And as a New Yorker, I am telling you, it is something that we need. It is really like we don't know how to slow down. In all my videos, I think at one point I always talk about the fact because we are New Yorkers, we don't know how to slow down. And this is something that can at least once a day or every other day teach us to, be able to calm down and sit for, and meditate. You're absolutely right.
If I could comment on that, I think especially post COVID, now that we are back out in society, back in our workplaces, we spent 2 years worried and cooped up, and now we're spending the time after out back in society and worried. And so there's a great deal of anxiety built around that situation. Plus, every day we are bombarded on news channels, 24-hour news. The 21st century is a stressful place to be, but
Yes.
you don't have any choice because it's not like you can go backward in time or forward in time. So what we can do is take charge of the here and now, and yoga provides a way of doing that.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Because you would think people were only stressed out when they were quarantined, but you're right. Not
No,
that you're
no, 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 no.
just a it's a different stress, but still stress, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, my next question is, what does yoga do for a person that is different from working out at the gym or jogging or cycling or swimming?
Well, when you consider those things, working out at the gym, jogging, cycling, swimming, those are very, very physically active, well, activities which cause all of your thoughts and all of your focus to center on what you are doing at that moment. So you really cannot think of anything else. What yoga does, although it certainly does tone the body, and yes, you can work up a sweat doing yoga, but it specifically wants to pair up your movements with your breathing. So if I could give you the old definition of yoga, it's a lot like the English word yoke. When you think of a yoke of oxen, two oxen with a big wooden collar pulling a cart, they're yoked together so that they work more efficiently as a team. And that's what yoga brings to the table. When you're swimming or cycling or jogging, you're having to think ahead. What is the next move? In yoga, you're pretty much in the moment. And so it gives you a chance to, once again, turn your focus inward. Yes, you're doing the physical, but you're combining it very consciously with mindful breathing. And while certainly that is a part, especially of swimming, in which you have to pair your breath with the different movements of the head and swimming so that you do not drown. You don't do it for your own quieting of your thoughts. Usually it's because you're working out for fitness or because you're training for a competition. So for yoga, you're really flooding your body with fresh oxygen and mindfully purifying yourself simply by breathing deeply, exhaling deeply, and pairing it with slow, gentle movements. There are certainly power yoga classes and hot
Yes.
yoga classes, which are made specifically for working up a sweat and really
Yes.
getting energetic. But yoga, at its most basic, is really all about putting together those two oxen, body and breath, and making them work more efficiently for your own health.
You're so right, because about a year ago, me and two of my co-founders, friends slash friends, we
Yeah.
started women only retreats.
Yeah.
And obviously I do the physical exercise part of the retreat. They do the mental health, I do the physical health. And I've always given option of yoga, and then I will also have a conditioning class.
Yes.
And nobody really wants to show up for the conditioning class. So I stopped doing it. I was like, I'm the only one who's there. But everybody wants to be at yoga. So I feel like, because our bodies we know what we need, whether we give it to our body or not, but our body knows. So as women, we tend to want to relax. We just don't know how to. So when we are giving the opportunity of doing yoga versus a conditioning class at a retreat, where you're going for mindfulness, where you're going for self-care, where you're going to, learn about yourself, women always show up at the yoga class.
Well,
And
it's
it is
interesting. Oh, go ahead.
it's amazing to see that.
It's interesting you should bring that up about the retreat, because society that we live in conditions us as women that we need to be getting our jobs done, taking care of our families, doing the shopping, running the errands, keeping the home clean, etc., etc. And we are pulled in different directions. And any sociologist can tell you that human beings are not meant to multitask at long periods of time. We are not good at it. And after a while, we begin to experience the stress of burnout. So, luckily, yoga gives you a chance to focus just on your breath and body here and now, if you're lucky enough to get a little period of time for yourself, so that you can calm that, because stress is so toxic. And when you talk about a women only retreat, I think the focus is on the word retreat, because women so desperately need to retreat from that relentless pressure of society.
I mean, we're good at it,
Yeah,
but
but it's not healthy for us.
it's not healthy, but we're good at it. Multitasking is our thing, like I make jokes with my husband, because I'll tell him to do like another thing, and he's like, I don't want to multitask. I'm like, you're already breathing, so breathing and one thing is multitasking. And another thing on top. Obviously it doesn't work. It's only us women who are who can do something like that. um So my next question, I see that you are certified as an Ayurveda specialist. What is Ayurveda, and did that change the way you eat and do self-care?
Oh, 100%. So, for those of you who are listening to and seeing this, if you don't know Ayurveda, Ayurveda is the sister science with yoga. So, just the way these two hands shake together, Ayurveda and yoga work together. Uh, Veda is the old Sanskrit word for science or study, and Ayur means life. So, it's literally the science or the study of life. And Ayurveda is a way of observing how you eat, how you care for your body, and how the seasons of the year in whatever part of the world you live in, it doesn't have to be just in India where it originated, how this affects you and how you need to adjust in other to keep yourself healthy for that time of year. So what Ayurveda does is it has you eat seasonally, and that's something that more and more people have become aware of over the last 20 years. Eat seasonally. Also, eat as fresh as you can. In other words, you don't overcook things, you don't overspice them. We, in Western culture, we tend to use a lot of salt. And so doctors are telling us all cut back on the sodium, cut back on the salt. There are so many other wonderful, healthy spices that we can use. I could go into a diatribe for the next hour and a half just talking about that. Also, the way that we take care of our bodies, uh, particularly, oddly enough, your oral care, because most people brush their teeth, put a little mouthwash in, and they think they're good to go. Oh, we can do so much more. There is a thing called oil pulling, in which you put just a little bit of, say, for instance, almond oil, sesame oil, olive oil in your mouth, swish it around a bit, spit it out. Very healthy for killing bacteria. And things like tongue scraping, which
Okay, yeah.
people have done for thousands and thousands of years. It's so good for helping to control bad breath. And then you'll save a ton of money because you're not having to buy lots and lots of breath mints.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But the technique with the oil, I actually don't know, but I will get that from you, and I'll also put that down in the post so people can actually, like, look it up and do that. That's awesome. See,
I,
I
I,
I tell people I'm learning all the time, and I'm so glad because I'm still learning.
we are. We should be lifelong students. And if I could, I would like to recommend a couple of Ayurveda specialists who are renowned really throughout the globe now, and that is Sahara Rose Katabi. Sahara Rose has several books published, but the best one is Ayurveda for Dummies, and it's a really wonderful. It's hilarious. She's hilarious. It's a great introduction book, and then her cookbook Eat Feel Fresh. And the first one third of the book is an introduction to Ayurveda, and it's a gorgeous book. The other author is Acharya Shunya. She is the first female in a 1,000-year lineage of her family being leaders and teachers of Ayurveda, and she has several books out. I could recommend any one of them, including one that she just released 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Give me the information, so I'll put it down with the rest of the information with that. And you talked about seasonal eating. It's
Yes,
amazing because I was born in Pakistan and I was there till I was 15, and then I moved to US. And we only did seasonal eating there because you didn't get things that were not in the season.
exactly.
That's just how it was. I mean, over here, I get everything, 12 months. But back home, that no, you waited for the season and that vegetable or that fruit to come in order for you to eat it. And honestly, then you wanted it too because you waited
Yes,
so long to be able to eat it. So you appreciate it more too. So that's
actually, you can sort of compare it with the way that people, especially here in the Northeast United States, we crave fresh tomatoes. And the only time we get truly fresh tomatoes is during the summer months when we grow them in our gardens. And I'm one of those tomato addicts. I get the seeds, I plant them in February, I raise the little plants, transplant them outside, and carefully water them and keep bugs and birds away from them. And then you have about 1 month in which you get tomatoes. At the end of that 1 month, you're so sick of tomatoes.
I get it. I mean, some of my friends love doing gardening. I just have indoor plants. I tried outdoor gardening a couple of years ago, and honestly, it was with sweat and blood. And when I say blood, because of the mosquitoes.
Yes,
Like, I
yes.
was sweating and they were sucking out my blood. So I was like, that's it. I am not doing this again ever. But I have enough friends who, during summer season, will start sending vegetables home because they have so much of it that they don't know what to
Yes.
do with it.
Yes.
I totally understand what you're saying. That's awesome. Okay, next question. You are particularly interested in teaching yoga mythology. How do you factor that into your yoga classes?
Well, most people who take yoga, if they hear any yoga mythology at all, it might be a quick story about one yoga pose. But what I did was I took it a step further because from a very young age, I had been interested in mythology. My father's side is all German, and so there is the Norse and Teutonic mythology. My mother's side is partly Cherokee, so indigenous peoples of Native America. Fascinating mythology there. And then as a child, I grew up very interested in Greek and Roman mythology. Once I started getting into yoga mythology and learning the myths of ancient India, especially going back to really pre-Hindu times, the Vedic histories, I was fascinated and I wanted them to be more prominent. So I developed my yoga mythology classes. So the way these are a little bit different from a regular yoga class is that I center the entire class and build the vinyasa or series of poses around a story from yoga mythology. And so I usually open for telling the story for maybe about 8 to 10 minutes maximum, and then embody the story in the sequence of poses in the vinyasa. Then we end the class, it's usually a 1 hour class, with a mudra, which is a hand position, which may embody an aspect of the character that I teach. And then sometimes we might end with a mantra, sometimes not, a little chant. But I use these myths because the myths teach character virtues, um, courage, generosity, telling the truth, things like that. Um, and it's sort of like what little kids do when they read Aesop's fables or when they have fairy tales which teach, for instance, Cinderella, be true to your to what you desire and be good and all things will come to you, that sort of thing. But yoga mythology has a very much, it's just fascinating because these characters are, they include superheroes and they include fascinating good and evil characters, or don't, not so much evil actually, but just think of, the dark and the light. We have that dichotomy there. So children on up to, as old as adults can possibly get, find yoga mythology fascinating because it's so different from what they've been used to being exposed to, usually in Western culture.
Hmm. That makes sense. And, it keeps a class interesting and, a lot more fun to be part of, right? You're not just focusing on one thing, you're looking at the whole, right? That is,
Exactly. And because I have a background as a singer and a performer, doing opera and musical theater, I became very aware of the need to have world cultures more diverse. So, in my training, I have a lot of linguistic training in different languages, and that made me want to dive into more of the stories behind these different productions that I was in. Most operas, for instance, are often based on myths or legends from the different cultures from which they come. And I feel that, especially in the 21st century, we need to be aware that there are other places in the globe that are not our place.
yeah, the world is so much more bigger. I love traveling, so I
Yes.
100% agree
Yeah.
with you. You think you've seen enough of the world, and then you go another place, and you're like, "Wow, I had no idea."
Exactly.
So it's
Exactly. And it's
you're
all
so
wonderful and it's
right.
all beautiful.
Yes,
Yes. Yes.
yes, yes, yes. Okay, here's this. This is a question like I get all the time also.
Okay.
So many people say that they can't do yoga because they're not very bendy. How would you respond to that?
Well, I would say you and I are sisters because I get that all the time too. And so I just tell people, if you're sitting in a chair at your dining table or at your office job, you're doing yoga because you don't have to be super bendy. And I have to put some of the blame on that perception on popular media because we see health and fitness yes, yes, we see health and fitness magazines with perfect bodies in beautiful designer, exercise clothing, and we think to ourselves, I am not a size 2. I'm not going to bear my midriff for anybody. There's no way I can do yoga or look like that
And I
cover.
can't put all my weight on one arm. It's
Right.
not happening.
Right. We are human. We're not perfect, nor are we superheroes. And so I would tell people who especially that would never show up to a regular yoga class, look into chair yoga. So These are a series of flashcards that I use quite a lot with children's yoga classes. And also, I've done lunchtime yoga for offices and businesses in which I actually teach them chair yoga during their lunch hours. You never have to get up out of the chair. You can work the legs, knees, hips, shoulders, arms, neck. And it's
You
fascinating.
are 100% right, because I actually use chair yoga for my kids who are in wheelchairs, or when
Yes,
I was working in nursing homes and stuff, and a lot of
yes,
my patients, the elderly, because of age or other diagnoses, are in wheelchair, and they're like, how do we do yoga? Because this concept of you have to get on a mat and you need to be able to do a, I don't know, a 360 at this point.
no,
This stage,
no,
it's not doing. And I feel like because of that, I don't see a lot of men doing yoga. And
yeah,
as a PT, flexibility is such a huge thing as you're aging as well. Like
yeah,
it actually prevents a lot of injuries if you are more flexible. But you don't see a lot of men doing yoga or even coming to it. And when I do have some people who want to do yoga, some men or boys,
mhm,
they really do not have the flexibility because it's already difficult for them, and then they never get into yoga or stretches, so
right,
then they can really benefit from it. But they just
absolutely. And
don't, they
that's
look at the pictures and they're like, well, I can do this.
exactly. I myself, I did not get into yoga until I was in my early 50s, and I don't even want to tell you my age now. But it's not that men's bodies are so horribly different from ours, because once you take away the idea of gender, we all have the same basic skeletal structure and the same muscle groupings. But it's for a lot of men, it's getting over the stigma of yoga as being something that women do.
Yeah.
And then they need to be able to use things like blocks under
Yes.
their hands to bring the floor up to them, because there is such stiffness usually in the lower back and the thigh muscles. And
Yes.
men's muscles often being larger than women's, that is an issue.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I one of the first things I did when I started doing yoga with other people, including women, because a lot of women haven't done yoga that come to
Yeah.
my class. I have the blocks and the belts and stuff,
Yes.
because they didn't even know that was an option. So a lot of times there are other assistants you have that you can use that really helps as far as for beginners, and do
Yeah.
it safely and enjoy the process as well.
That's the key. And people need to know that as yoga teachers, if yoga teachers have received any type of reputable training, we are trained to avoid injury at all costs.
Yes.
So people may think, well, I've got brittle bones or osteoporosis, or I had a knee injury, or I broke my toe. Let us know as teachers, and we will factor that in and make absolutely sure you walk out of the room without being harmed.
Same thing with back pain and knee pain.
Yes,
Some people can't get on the floor and do the poses. So then we know how to work with you. So you do. You need to be, you need to let your teacher know when you start the
absolutely.
class. If you have back pain, if you have, knee issues and stuff, don't try to get in a position and then walk out saying, well, now I can't use my knee for next 4 days because it's not the teacher's fault. You never told them. You're not
Exactly. And
doing
I
it.
think I would also add in that if a student comes in with a congenital condition such as scoliosis, curvature of the spine, or something like this, or they have a little bit of say what's called a hump, a
Yeah.
dowager's hump here. Usually we can spot that, but it's always good to let the teacher know
Yes.
beforehand. And then you can always be given what's called modifications, because again, the very first rule that we all have to abide by is we will do no harm to the student.
All right. I'm going to ask you the last question. I know this is going long, so we
That,
definitely need part two because now we really need to get into some of the poses of yoga. So we'll
yeah,
definitely do that. I think Dr. Sandra will be okay with coming back again for part
yeah,
two so we can get more
absolutely.
into details.
Anytime. Anytime.
So I'm going to ask you last question to kind of end the interview with this. So maybe some people can at least learn the basics of breathing techniques.
Yes. And
That's the beginning of anything, is the breathing techniques and why it's important. And if you can just teach us maybe a little bit about it, so some of the people can start working on it.
super easy. Yeah, I mentioned before that yoga is the yoking together of the body and the breath. So, what you want to do is have the body aligned so that it's easy to breathe. And coming from a background of being a singer, well, breathing is kind of how we do what we do as singers, but it should be more mindful for everyone. So, a very simple thing to do is what's called box breathing. The Sanskrit word for the controlled breathing that we use in yoga is called pranayama. That's fine if you want to use that, but you don't even have to use that term. Box breathing is so easy, and you can do this when you're sitting in a waiting room at the doctor or the dentist and they're running late. You can use this to keep yourself calm. And here's all there is to it. You sit with your shoulders back and your back straight. You breathe in solidly for a count of 4, and you're just counting silently. Then you hold it for a count of 4, silently breathe out for a count of 4, and then you hold that for a count of 4. So you're making the 4 sides of a box. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. And just start with counts of 4. You can do that in your mind. You can do it when you're riding on a bus, you can waiting in line, you're sitting in class and class hasn't started yet. If you feel a little anxious or a little worried or upset, simple box breathing like this. And then you are doing pranayama.
So if you can just do the counting for us, I will do it. And I'm sure people who are watching also will at least try practicing it once or twice. Can you count it out for us so we can,
Absolutely.
practice it once or twice?
So I'll say, as I always do, make sure you roll your shoulders back so that you open up the heart space. And then through the nose, and only through the nose, inhale steadily, 3, 4. Now hold it, 2, 3, 4. Exhale steadily, 3, 4. And hold that, 2, 3, 4. And that's one cycle of a box breath.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like doing multiple one after another, and
Yes.
you need to work on that.
You do, but the more you do it, you will see and sense an immediate slowing down of the heart rate. You'll sense your whirling thoughts starting to slow because now your body is having to concentrate on mindfully controlling the breath. And normally you don't have to do that because breathing is part of the autonomic nervous system. We just do it without thinking about it. But now you're taking charge of this. And so it forces you to turn inward and be more mindful of how you breathe.
That is so true. When I was doing some of my classes, people would want to do it over and over and over, and I told them you
Yes.
can only do a couple of times. This is the beginner's class, and then
Yes.
slowly you work your way up. You don't start by holding it for 10 seconds and then
No, you're not underwater. You don't hold your breath. I hope that the next time you do a retreat, you could perhaps offer 30 to 40-minute pranayama session and just teach people the different ways in which they can do these breathing exercises. There are
So we
so many
actually,
versions.
yeah.
So
So
many.
in our retreats, the first thing I do is actually I teach them the breathing, and then I also, as a PT, I can't help myself, like not to do the chest breathing and how to do diaphragm, like all of that. We do all of
Yes,
that,
yes.
and then the other person, she actually does meditation.
Excellent.
So she
Perfect.
will either start with meditation and then I'll go into my yoga, or after I finish my yoga, then she comes in while everybody's now either sitting or laying down, whatever position they want to be in. They already know how to do the breathing and they'll start the breathing and then she'll do the meditation for them. So
That's
we
perfect.
actually put that in, and it's been working awesome, and people have been loving it. Thank you so much, Dr. Sandra. I am
Thank you.
so happy, and I'm so glad you were able to join us. You gave us so much information, and you're full of knowledge. I can't wait to talk to you again. I have so many questions already, but we're going to cut this one short now. It's not short, but we will end this here, and we'll definitely do a part 2, because now we should go into some of the positions, some
Yes.
poses, how to do it correctly, and things like that. So I really appreciate you taking the time out and talking to us. And like I tell my viewers all the time, if you guys have any questions, please reach out to us.
Yes.
I will put all the information for her as well, so you can reach out to her as well. Check her
Yes.
out, her
Yes.
website. Her book is out. It's on Amazon and Kindle. Please go check this out, and I will put, like I said, all the links for you guys. And thank you so much again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.